Hi, friends. Welcome. It is week 10, the Algo session. We have a little bit of an option. I have an algorithm that we can do as a group. I think it'd be fun. It's a little more simplistic, but it's something that we can sort of think through and work through together. The other thing I just wanted to make sure, I know that Andrew taught on Monday. Sorry, I had a little bit of an issue. I had a little bit of an emergency I had to handle. So thankfully he stepped in. But I wanted to make sure you guys really understood update and delete. And there's one little trick with update that I wanted to make sure you guys had. So I kind of wanted, before we jump into the algorithm, to get a base and a feel for how are we feeling about update and delete. Is there anything you need me to walk through? Anything you want me to go back over, just to make sure you guys have a full understanding? Just put maybe a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being that you fully understand update and delete and you've worked with it, or a 1 like you haven't even touched it other than class and you're kind of confused.
Hey, well, I was confused on the way he had the file set up, his file structure. He had a bunch of different folder
Folders.
names and stuff that I've
Yeah.
never seen.
Yeah, so that's called modularization, Grayland. We're going to talk about that on Monday. And so that is where we sort of break out from everything in the server PY to having different folders. Same sort of same code, just different folders. But yeah, that's called modularization, and we'll go over that on Monday. But more so, has anybody tried or tested sort of update? There's one trick that I wanted you guys to see to make sure that I know that Tenzin here's Tenzin or Kobe. No, it's Kobe, sorry, that we talked about in office hour. There's a little trick with update that you have to make sure you know. I think I want to go over that just real quick, just in case, just so that way we know what's going on. I don't have, this is my other computer, so I don't have my database on this. So we're going to talk the code. We're not going to see it function. Just trust me that it works. But here we have sort of our movie code from 2 weeks ago. Last week, sorry. And here I have just a couple different things to where we just went through with this code. We did creating and reading, but I also have, I had this sort of built out for this Monday, but obviously I didn't teach, to where we can edit and we can update and delete our functionality. Now, one thing that's important to know is that when we are passing or using this updating methodology, or when we are using our update method, we need to pass all the information that we are using, or that we want to update in our, we need to pass all of our information to our query, right? One piece that we'll also have to pass is going to be our ID. Now, there's two ways. I mean, there's multiple ways to do lots of things. There's two ways you can do this, because you will need your ID. Now, also a great way to sort of problem solve and to test is when you are running this and you're trying to run update and maybe it's not updating. The first place you're going to want to look is your terminal. Your terminal is going to, if you're reading through, it's going to say error, didn't know what to do with ID or last name, right? And so then that's when you can go into your code and say, oh, here I accidentally put a capital G genre, but I know it's a lowercase, right? And so that's how you can kind of problem solve bugs. So that's first and foremost. If it's not doing what you think it's supposed to be doing, but you're not getting like a error, whatever, like your server's not breaking, but it's just saying, hey, there's no error. That's an error response from our server saying, hey, something's wrong. But when we are dealing with our movie, in this case, if we want to update, here's the query. Here's the query that we have, right? So we update movies, we set our, and then we have our title is title, genre is genre, director is directors, release date. And this is going to be why we need our ID, right? Because it needs to indicate which ID or which movie specifically that we're editing. Now we can grab this information again in one of two places. One place we can grab it is from our form itself. Now, if we do that, I've got to, and I need to put it here. Let me say, okay. So I think that's what it was called. Oh, update underscore movie. If I want to do it that way, right, then I need to create a hidden input file. Very simple. You don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff. You can just say something like this, where you say input type, its type is hidden. What this means is that the user's not going to see this input. It's not going to be a field, nothing that they can do. But it's a way that we can pass information that we need via a form, and our user never sees it, right? So they'll fill it out and say title, genre, director, and they'll submit. But we're also saying, hey, we want to pass this piece of information. What this allows us to do is we create this hidden one. We have a name of ID. So that way, when it's matching our request.form, we pass that through. But more importantly, we have to give it our value. And since we already have, the ability to have that information, because when we called edit movie, we passed it out. Movie get movie, right? So we already have that information from that specific movie that we're editing. We can do that. And so when that happens, when this form gets submitted, we have our request.form of ID. It's going to be equal to whatever the ID is here. Request.form of title is, if they don't change it, it's going to be whatever is passed through. If they do change it, it's going to take on whatever they changed it to, right? So if it's Walter Mitty, but they misspelled it, it'll be the new one. If it's not misspelled and they're just wanting to change the director and it's already there and populated, it'll take that on. Then it takes that information, comes here, we break it down to where I have ID, title, genre, director, pass in our update movie, or go to call our update movie, and then we redirect back to our main route. This comes here into my movie.py. It goes to update movie, and now we have all the information that we need, right? We have our title, our genre, our director. We don't have release date because that's not something we did. Where ID is ID. The second way we could do that, so that's option one, that's way one. I guess I'll pause there. Are there any questions on what I did and how I did that? Again, if this is something that is Andrew already covered, okay, I just want to make sure everybody, because that's a little bit of a tricky part. You're like, this is kind of confusing. Cool. The other way we could do it, if we didn't want to do a hidden input file, we didn't want to do that. The other way is I could say movie.id. And so what this will do is this will go to this method of update movie / movie ID. And we could then, if that's the case, the same way we have up there, we typecast it to int ID, which then takes in ID. And instead of this, we just say ID. That'd be the other way we do it, right? But either way, we need to have the ID. So we can pass it in our form with a hidden input file, okay. Or we could just throw it in our route. And then so when they click that and update it, it sends it and we grab it that way. If we do the route, so this will be really important because I know a lot of you guys will just pass request.form instead of breaking this down. I would encourage you to break this down. If you're going to do it in your route, you have to do it this way. right? In order for you to have access to all that. So if you just say request.form, even though you have ID, you need to pass it through. So if you're going to put it in the route, you have to break down a data dictionary.
Well, so how are we finding out the ID? How is that question being asked? Because like I was thinking, could you just query the database? But then you don't
Yeah,
need to.
so great question. So remember when we are, great question. So if we bring this up, if I were to run this again, my data, I don't have a database because I'm on my other computer. But if we were to run this, let's say let's see. See if I can just pop this up. I think I have a movie DB. I can just change it in my connection file. Might not work. Yeah. My instance is broken. Let's say that we had like an edit, right? And I wanted to go to an edit page. And so the way that this works is when we've got show movie, right? This has a button called edit. That goes to edit movie / movie ID. So when our user clicks this button, what it does is it goes to this route, edit movie. So we go into my server PY. We find edit movie ID. We grab that ID from the route, pass it, and we render template. This is my edit form, basically. To where then we also say movie equals, and this is we pass this into my HTML, where just like you said, Graylin, we are doing a database query and saying, cool, I want to get movie, which is getting one movie, right? We're getting our movie. What movie are we getting? We are getting the movie where data matches ID. So it goes in here and it runs get movie. So select all from movies where the movie is ID. So now we have access to that in my edit movie HTML. And so whenever I say movie.id, it's just the ID of whatever movie I clicked on, right? So if I clicked edit, we have access to it. And so we can still pass that information from here now to this other route. Instead, we go to this update movie ID, update movie, and then we pass in the ID. And then we can pass it again to update movie. So then we come here. So yeah, we do have a database query at the beginning that gives us access on this specific HTML that says, hey, okay, great. I want to have access to the movie ID, movie title, movie genre, movie director. And then we can either pass it in through a hidden input, or we can just put it in our route here. Either one works just fine. There's not really advantage of one over the other.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Are there any other questions on this? I just wanted to make sure because that part's kind of hard to understand. Everybody clear as mud on that?
Hey, Will.
Yeah, for now.
Cool. Yeah, go ahead, Tenzin.
If you don't have to show the movie, do we have to create the get one for update?
You need to know, you'll have to query either way, at least to get the information, so that way it knows what movie it's updating. So if you're clicking on like edit movie, you need to say, this is the movie I want to edit, right? And so that's where you bring up this form and now it knows, okay, it has this information. And so we can then use it to pass through. So that way our database knows which one we're dealing with or which one we are updating, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? So yeah, you will have to do a query at some point. Cool. Okay, great. We've got 7 people, so 3 and 3. So if you guys want, I can put you in breakout rooms. And I think it'd be kind of cool to, for the next, I don't know, let's say 20 minutes. You guys work on the algo and then we'll come together for the last 20 minutes and go through it and see what you guys come up with. How does that sound?
That sounds pretty good.
Cool. So I will explain this just for the recording purposes. I'll pause it. We'll go and then I'll pop into each room, see how you guys are going and see how it goes. But cool. So here it is. This is called a narcissistic number. A narcissistic number is a positive number, which is the sum of its own digits, each raised to the power of the number of digits there. This seems way more hard, like seems way harder than it is, I promise. In a given base. So it's a base of 10, so you don't really have to worry anything. But here's kind of an example. If I have the number 153, there is 3 total digits. So what it's doing is it's taking the sum of its own digits, each raised to the power of the number of digits in a given base. So for 153, what we do is we take 1 to the 3rd power, plus 5 to the 3rd power, plus 3 to the 3rd power, which is 1 plus 125 plus 27, and that gives us 153. So what we want to do is we want to write a function to determine if a number is narcissistic or not. So I will give you the numbers will be provided in the form of a list of strings. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to basically iterate through that list, check each one. Is going to be just a list of 5, so it's not going to be anything crazy. Check each one, and if it's a narcissistic number, then return true, and if it's not, return false. I'll put that too. Cool. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. I will put this in Discord so that way you guys have access, and then I will put you guys in groups. Give me just 1 second. And then I'll keep the stuff in there so that way you guys can just. Cool. Okay, so that is in Discord, and then let me pause recording. Okay. Anybody want to share their screen and maybe we can work through it and try to figure it out?
I think Kobe was on to something.
Okay. So Kobe and Tenzin, I know you guys have it. Either one of you guys want to share and then we can sort of quickly figure it out.
Okay, I will.
Cool. Okay. So what did you guys get it to say? Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
You try to
So
run it.
I can see the first. Yeah, so let's try to run it. Let's see what it says.
It says false, false, false.
Okay. It says false, 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 false. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is let's change, and I think I see the error. Is I sent you guys, this is my fault. The init, I said that it is a list of strings, but I sent you a list of numbers. So let's change that to strings.
Mhm.
So let's change those to strings. That's probably what will do it.
Okay.
Okay. So what we can do is we need to so we are iterating through. And we are grabbing our first list, right? And so what that does is that is going to, well, the list in itself is still fine. We still want to iterate through that, so you don't need to
Okay.
typecast that.
Mhm.
Yeah, but each value is going to be a string, right? So let's change those to strings here. Either way, there's still some functionality that we'll need to handle.
No, from here.
Yeah, each of those, we change those to strings. You could just put the quotation marks around them. You don't need to typecast. You can just
Mhm.
go ahead and put the quotes around it and make them strings. You don't need to typecast it.
Okay.
Quotes, sorry. Not parentheses, it'll be the quotes, just like a string.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, perfect. Just like that. Get rid of that parenthesis. Yep. You could actually highlight it. Yeah, and then just there you
Mhm.
go. Oh, Command Z that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
Yes.
perfect. Okay. So we first need to iterate through that. And so we have this for I in list, and I represents 153, right? 153.
Mhm.
Then what we can do is we need to do a second iteration
Oh.
because we need to iterate through each one of these numbers, right? Because we have to take 1 to the 3, and we need to take 5 to the 3, and then we need to take 3 to the 3, and then we add the sum there. Right? We add all these to our sum. So when we have this, yep, we're iterating through. I represents, let's maybe say num instead of I, just to make it a little bit
Okay.
easier. Yeah, perfect. Now we're going to double iterate. So we're going to say for I in num. Perfect. So now we're getting each letter. Perfect. Yeah, you'll take that back. Perfect. Now, something I noticed here is you guys have your first sum, and then you have you see how it grows and it keeps growing. That's because sum is defined up here. So then it's persistent throughout, right? We're just adding it in. It's not sort of refreshing. We're checking if each number or if each list or, each combination of numbers is that. So let's move sum into list right here. And it's equal to 0. And let's get rid of that 0 up there. Okay. Your results can stay there. That's fine because, we're iterating through that's okay. So now what we're doing is we're getting for I and num. I represents this number, and you have sum plus equals I, which is great, times, doing both of those is the to the power of the length of, now it's not list, it's going to be num.
Um,
Yeah, because length of list is going to be how many? So there's 5. Probably why you're getting such high numbers. Cool. Then we're gonna say if sum equals, and it's not list, what is it? Yeah, there you go. It's num. Then let's go ahead and append true, else append false.
Mhm.
Now, what this is going to do is, let's think about it. Let's say that we have the number 153, right? We're gonna say for I and num. Well, I represents what at this number? At the first iteration, what's I represent? Of 153?
One.
One,
One.
exactly, right? So I represents one. It's gonna say sum plus equals I, so 1 to the third power, right? Which we know is just 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So then sum is going to equal 1. Then immediately we're saying if sum equals 1, do true. So do we want this if else statement nested under this for loop?
No, because we're looking for the total of 153. Just gonna keep
Exactly.
doing like 1, 5, 3 separately.
So we need to get it exactly. So we need to let this for loop finish. And the way we do that is let's just take this, take the if statement. Yeah, exactly. Just like this, put it on the same level. Great. So what this is going to do is this is going to let that whole thing run, and we're going to get our sum, and then we're going to say, cool, if that's equal to number, then we're A-okay. If not, then we'll say false. So let's run this and see if we get errors. I think we're going to get an error, but let's run it and see what we get. Cool. Here, unsupported operand types for power string and int, right? So we need to make sure we're getting length of num. But num is let's go ahead and print num. Let's print num up here and see what we get sort of before we get to that error. Okay, before we get that, we get 153. Let's do type.
Yeah.
Let's do type. Let's figure out what the type is. So do type around num. Cool. We see that's a
Sure.
string. Okay. So let's print the len of num. Oh, let's Command Z. Okay.
Integer.
So integer, great. So that's great. So what's the other thing we're using in our math? We know that this is an integer, right? So let's check this. I know we're running out of time, so we don't have to check. I right now is a string, so let's typecast that
Mhm.
to integer of I. Perfect. Cool. Great. So now let's try it again.
False, false, false.
False, 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 false. Okay. So let's see. Let's under here, after 20, let's print sum. So let's just print the sum and we'll see what we're getting each time. Cool. Now, one other trick you could do is under this, let's just put, under this else, Because we know the first one's true, right? We know 153 is a narcissistic number. So under this, between line 25 and 26, just put a break. But put it just over. And what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that we're not going through the entire list. Just put it over. It needs to be on the same. And just type the word break. B-R-E-A-K. Just delete. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It looks like you're trying to annotate. Yep, delete the line and then press break.
Uh-oh.
Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Oh, just say deny. It's okay. Or else you're gonna have to restart. Okay. So just press break there or type break.
Okay.
Yep. And what this does is breaks the for loop, so it no longer runs. So it only just does one iteration. When you're testing, you don't always want to, if there's a whole bunch. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so we are getting 153. Now, anybody see the error? Anybody think about it? Because we're getting this right. It's 153, right?
Yeah.
Why is it saying 1 and 126? Or
Because that's what
where's
it's,
that coming
that's the first one, right? So we're saying, okay, for I and num. For I, let me annotate. For I and num. I for 153 is first, it's 1. And we say, okay, great. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And then we're printing the sum. And we got a 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. And so the sum is the plus equals, that's where we get the 126. And then 3 times 3 times 3 gets us the 153. So that's right. Anybody think of why we can, or what the issue is here? What is num? We're seeing if it's equal to num. What was that? What did we, whenever we did the type of, what was it?
No, string?
Yeah, it's a string. And then sum, remember we typecasted, and this is an integer. And so what this is comparing is this is saying, is 153 the integer the same as 153 the string? And it's not, right? And so exactly, you could just do that, or you could have done the other one, right? Either one would have worked just fine.
Yeah.
Cool. So then let's go ahead and run it again. Oh, now we're getting
Yeah.
true. So let's go ahead and take off this break. Yeah, we can get rid of this. You can get rid of the print stuff. You can get rid of both.
Is it 3 times 3 times 3, 27? How do you get 153?
3
So
times
it's
3 times 3 is 27, but it's
1 plus 125, which makes 126 plus 27.
Oh, it's
Remember, we're saying
continuation.
sum plus equals. Yeah, so we're taking the original sum, which at the beginning is 1, and then we're adding integer times that. So 1, and then we had 125, and then we had, so that equaled 126. And then we have 27 plus the previous sum of 125, which is the 153. That's what this line is doing here.
Okay.
Cool. And then now we got it. We have true, false, true, false, true. And that's what they were. Cool. All right. So we got it done. Any questions on what we did? Okay.
What if number isn't the string one?
I'm sorry.
What if like the number isn't the string?
Isn't a string? Well, then we wouldn't
Yeah.
have to, oh, that's a great question. Well, then we would. Ooh. Because you can't iterate through in the same way.
Mhm.
So what we would have to do, honestly, is we would have to take the number and we would have to typecast it as a string, then iterate through that, and then retypecast it back.
Mhm.
Because you can't for loop through a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you'd have to do. Or that's one way you could do it. I'm sure that there's another way. So. Yeah, that's how I would kind of brute force way through it, is type it as a string, do what we did, and then kind of do that.
So
In-
to get the results of the other numbers, would you query the index?
You don't need to. We got the results here at the bottom. Remember, this first for loop is iterating through that list. And so the second for loop is dealing with the number itself. So the second for loop deals with, the 153, the 98, the actual individual numbers in that. But this first for loop gets us, because we did in list, we don't need to do range. We're just going to start with this one. And then once everything's done and it comes back to the top here, it goes on to this one, and then that one, and so on and so forth.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's what that first for loop's doing. Any other questions on this? Does this make sense? I know it's a little bit confusing, but did it make sense?
Yeah.
Still a little fuzzy on my end, but
It
some
doesn't-
review and I'll have it down.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense to me how to get started with
sure,
this pattern,
sure.
but it's research I gotta do on this.
Yeah,
Same. I really didn't know how to start, honestly.
sure.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe
with
what-
Graylin on that.
Maybe what we can do is we can, on the next one, what we'll do is we'll do it maybe as a group. Or what we'll do, I know I took a little bit of time at the beginning, is we'll do it as a group, and then I can come back and do it together. And this is a practice thing. I know that sounds so sucky. Just like, oh, just practice more, but it really is familiarity, and you're sitting and saying, okay, let's break down with pseudocode, like, what do I need to accomplish here? Well, I know I need to iterate through my list, so I need to do some sort of for loop, and then you'll just get, as you do it more and more, you go, okay, yeah, I need to make sure I handle this. I can't do this because one's an integer and one's a string, et cetera, et cetera. So it's repetition will be something that you have to do for these. And at the beginning, again, when I first learned how to code, these were such a challenge. I very much so in all of your spots. Like, okay, everybody's saying start this. I have no idea. So I would throw out keywords I knew, like conditional statement, for loop, let's do something, right. And I didn't know at all. So it is a with practice thing. So cool. Well, the recording will be up. If you guys want to work through it, it's also in your it's also in Discord. So if you have any other questions, or if you want to, write through it, then you can create new test cases. You can do that. Feel free.